Welcome back, everyone, to Stay in Your Lane podcast, brought to you by Triple T Transport. I'm your host, John Maley. Today, going back to Mr. Thomas Kern for some legal help here. TK, Walter Haverfield, partner, been all over the transportation industry for years. Some staggering numbers have come out this year, and we've seen a shift. Supply Chain Quarterly says cargo theft rose 41% in the first 20 weeks of 2023. 41%. Now, let me throw some other numbers at you. The Lodestar stated that double brokering estimated to cost our industry over $500 million a year. Now, you being a transportation attorney, I know you're going to have something to say about that. The TIA, the Transportation Intermediary Association, which I know you're familiar with, established a task force to fight freight fraud. Is this the back end remnants of the COVID fraud that we saw all over the ports? Or is this just where we are as an industry today? What are your thoughts, Thomas?
Well, I think it's somewhat reactionary, obviously, to a tough economy. And post COVID, we never really bounced back 100%. I think we're still trying to do that as a nation. So, and in fact, for some people, it's gotten much worse. Different regulations that have come in that have cost people in the trucking industry jobs and things like that. For instance, AB5, which people had to let go of people that we talk about sometimes. So I think it's more of people are more desperate right now.
Backs against the wall?
Right. Well, anytime you see a surge like that, you know what I'm saying? It's an anomaly. It's not normal. It wasn't a 2% surge. It wasn't the status quo. So something's up. And I think honestly, we're really feeling the effects of, not only 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and these measures that have taken place, jobs lost, economy, kind of in the tank. And it hasn't come back. Now we're dealing with, inflation issues in the industry. And so that is my theory on it, is just folks have less money so they're doing more scamming. And you're seeing, it's not just transportation. I mean, there's scamming going on in every industry.
Yeah,
But
cyber scams are just absolutely off the chain. And I would say for the past couple of years, we've seen a huge uptick.
yeah, and I mean, our federal government can't even keep them out of their system. So, how are we supposed to well, actually, I think we probably do a better job as a private industry. But yeah, it's rampant, it's real. And, the number one thing on all of this is be vigilant, as I'm sure you guys are. Um,
Yeah, we get in front.
and it's more, yeah. And then that's the number one piece of advice, right? I mean, the back end stuff, we can talk about some of the things you can do, but it's really on the front end, anything you can do up front, as you well know, to avoid it. Every little bit helps. I mean, it may be 5 minutes you take extra to Google this outfit or look them up on the FMCSA. You didn't just take the load board's word for it or whatever. You went and did a little bit of your own. You
Yeah.
spent 5 minutes and you see, oh, wait a minute, this isn't what this carrier number is connected to a different group. This name isn't right, or this email
The
seems
phone
strange.
numbers don't match.
Call somebody. Call them, find out if it doesn't sound right, don't do it. And that's really, and I know it's easy for me to say because I do understand. John, I go into your shop sometimes and I see how hard you guys are working and how fast it moves. Just walking through the bay, I can see behind you I know those people are working all day, every day, trying to move flows really quickly and find the best person. So there's also the practical piece of it, which I understand. But
Well,
5 minutes, it could be 5 minutes that saves you from a catastrophic loss.
we have a lot of hoops that we go through on our due diligence before someone is able to pick up a load for us or on our behalf.
The credit checks, the all
Credit
those.
checks, the other services that we subscribe to, freight guard reports, care 411. But I think our style of doing business protects us also. I think the fact that 80% of our freight is continuously hauled by the top 20% of our carrier base, we're continually moving the equipment. We're loyal to them, they're loyal to us. But we're seeing so much more and hearing every time I look at anything on freight waves or on anything industry related. We're seeing a ton of double brokering be brought up now. There are things that we expect to go higher when the economy gets tough, right? You see more claims. Percentage wise, claims will go up if you aren't aggressive about staying in front of it. Carriers don't run their refrigerated trailers on continuous trying to save fuel, right? You end up with a claim. Those situations happen. From a fraud and a scam perspective, I think there's a lot of times a shipment won't be paying what somebody really wants. They'll take it from a broker and then they'll broker it to another carrier for a whole bunch more than what the freight rate was originally paying. And then they don't pay the carrier. I think that those scenarios happen when you're doing business with people that you don't know, more so. Car manufacturers, I heard, were still sending their cars from manufacturing to dealerships empty and then shipping the other stuff to be installed at the dealership because of cargo fraud.
Right.
Are you
And it's,
seeing an influx of double brokering?
honestly, it's usually like one of the biggest things that comes to me. And it has been for years. So for me, I haven't seen like more work in that specific area. It's kind of pretty steady. And it's not new, right? I mean, so what is it, Map 21? So that was, I mean, put in place. A lot of those provisions were to help clean up the brokering industry. Obviously, they raised the bond rate.
Yep, 250.
They made it harder to become a broker. They wanted to make the entry threshold a little higher, thinking, the thought behind it was they would have more qualified, better folks. They gave a private right of action against anyone who is engaged in the double brokering or illegal brokering, we should call it, a private right of action against anyone that was involved in it. So what that means is you can go for the first time, you had a way to go after the owners, the officers and directors of these brokers. And that has been a powerful tool. No one wants to see their name on a lawsuit. So it's one thing when it's the LLC, right? When it's you, it's a little bit different. And this particular law gave the ability to do that. It created a private right of action. So to give
So
an
you can go
example,
after them personally?
oh yeah, and
That's
that's
wonderful.
that, and I tell you, that's a settlement maker. It really is. Just trying to get, and all you're trying to do is get made whole and make things right.
Right.
Nobody's looking for a windfall or this or that. I've never found like a case where it's been taken all the way through trial. Um,
That makes a
but
statement, though.
Well, it does. I mean, it's very interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you from a lawyer's perspective that this Map 21 has been incredibly effective. It again, that private right of action gives me access, gives me a legal basis to sue not only the company that
But
engaged
the individuals
both
involved.
companies. Actually, the company that was supposed to be the motor carrier and the company that they brokered to, that company as well, and all their principals. So that gives me it allows me to cast a very wide net.
That's good though.
Oh, it's great. I mean,
So why
it
do we
put
have
us,
all this double brokering being talked about?
well, I think hasn't deterred everyone from doing it. And some folks are desperate. So I think what you have to do is use trusted carriers, obviously. Go through these vetting techniques. I mean, you can get online and find a white paper that says 5 things, blah, blah, blah. Every load board will have one for you, a 5 or 10 things to avoid fraud and double broker.
I mean, there are going to be people that you can't make happy in our industry. There are. I mean, you can do everything possible and still not, you're not going to be able to make everyone happy. But when people show you who they are, believe them.
Oh, absolutely. And here's an issue, right? People double or illegally broker all the time. And a lot of times it works out and
Right.
nobody says a word. They're going to keep doing it and it's not always going to work out.
Right.
So at that point, they have violated that contract. That's the other thing. You don't want to create a course of dealing where that becomes okay. So there's another piece. But to your point, it's all proactivity on the front end, right? That's the number one thing you can do. I bet you the firms that spend 5 extra minutes have like a 90% lower issue rate with this, right? I mean,
Right.
it's like just put the band-aid on the front end so you don't have the surgery later, right?
Right. I
Now, you need
mean,
the
it's
surgery later.
preventive maintenance.
Yes.
I mean, it's no different than going out and checking to make sure the truck's got air in all the tires.
Something I do too is I will notify the insurer sometimes at the same time. If I can figure out who they are on the FMCSA, I'll send the insurance company,
And FYI,
yeah, like you're going to be paying on this. Um, and to all the carriers involved, like one of you guys is going to make us whole, or we're going to, sue everyone and all of the principals, and we will. Most folks will. This is one that particularly upsets folks. They feel betrayed and deceived. So a lot of times, it almost feels personal. And they, at least a lot of my folks will go after these pretty aggressively. But that's really how you have to do it. I mean, you never want to let any of this stuff sit. You have to immediately start trying to resolve the issue or the claim, and trying to get to insurance as quickly as you can.
so for all of you out there watching this, if you have double brokering scenarios that you haven't been paid from, if you're an asset-based carrier and you haven't been paid, feel free to look up Mr. Thomas Kern. We'll put his contact information on the screen. He's with Walter Haverfield here at the end of this. Appreciate you coming on, Thomas. Love the subject matter, and you're definitely well versed and well experienced. Yeah, for the rest of you out there, transportation questions, liabilities, concerns, reach out to Thomas. And thanks for paying attention to Stay in Your Lane. Yeah, brought to you by Triple T Transport.
Thanks, John.